Storm magic. And I'm not telling you this from a perspective that, oh, this is an established, these are established practices by others that you can just look up on Google and just find some babalao that can corroborate this. You got to understand. This is that special. You can call it hogwash and walk away from it. That is perfectly fine, because I'm telling you right now, these are things that no person taught me. This is just what I do. I tend to start watching hurricane season early. Okay, I am on the Western Hemisphere here. Maybe May, you know what I'm saying? April, May, start paying, like looking over there. And that's not really super early, but storm season usually doesn't start until the summer. So start watching in spring. And you get the jump on when those storms start to form, because that's when you start planning. Okay? When it's just a disturbance in the water out there or whatnot, just keep an eye on it. It's when when everyone starts perking up in their chair. Like when the thing starts coming together and taking form and getting a rhythm and getting a speed. That is like the point where a child is born, or an entity is born, because now it has its own rhythm, its own rotation. It itself has started to regulate its own power. Like it's almost like it becomes aware of itself, because it starts to make it rotate and spin in a centralized, organized way. Okay. It's a point of self-realization for that storm system. Tropical storms count, of course, because they're like teenage storms. You know what I'm saying? They're lively, but they're still young. When they start getting into those adults, the category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what's amazing is that this year we've even reached a point where the storm speed out in the ocean have gotten to points where they were considering, geez, do we now need a category 6? So these guys are coming out bigger and better every time. Side note, anti-clockwise movement is the typical movement of a hurricane. They do not spin clockwise. Those are like rare unicorn moments that I'm not even sure if I've seen in my lifetime yet. But anti-clockwise is excellent, because that is the motion that I use and follow around seals and sigils for unsealing and unlocking. Therefore, this force, this atmospheric power, is spinning in the direction that can be easily used to unlock and unseal things. So pulling this energy later for road openers and for situations where you need to open things up is excellent. The power itself could be used later simply to amplify magical workings, but just an anti-clockwise note, because clockwise motion in my magic is the direction of closing, shutting, and sealing. But again, hurricanes move anti-clockwise, so they have the nature of a road opener. Now, depending on how wily the thing is, you'll know if you can do a sophisticated transaction with it, or if it's a wild storm that might need to be subdued or redirected, because it might actually make it to you and tear some stuff up. Okay, you don't want that. So it's times when you'll do storm magic for safety measures to save your house. Okay. And there's other times, well, you'll draw from it. Actually, you can do all of that in the same swoop. Yeah, you can turn it into a win-win. I've had situations happen before where, and I'm in the mid-Atlantic region, so we rarely ever get a direct hit, but we always get the activity. By the time it reaches it to us, it then bumped the hip bone of North Carolina at the bottom down there. And it'll boot it out in the water again, or it'll knock the power down. You know what I'm saying? So by the time it get to us, it's a tropical storm or category 1. You know what I'm saying? But there was a time where it was one that came from an angle, where won't nobody gonna get it but us. And that bitch was a category 5. Like, it was coming straight this way. It usually comes, okay, so this is like how North Carolina's butt is right there. And then this is where the mid-Atlantic, like Virginia up into Maryland and DC, where that little triangle section starts to build upwards. Okay, so the storm will come in, ooh, boom, hit North Carolina, bounce out to sea, or it'll knock down power and still pass over us. But it usually follows the trail up from Florida. No, this fucker came straight from this away. It was coming straight for our ass. And I remember that was the first time I was like, okay, I have actually got to do something. This is because it's a 5, honey. It's not like it's coming straight at us as a little 2 or 1. No. It's big dog out this joint. So as it pertains to safety measures, that side of the storm magic, what you will do, or correction, I don't talk to like that. What I do is I go outside. You will need to be aware of your directions. You have to face the storms down, okay? I go outside. I usually sensory-wise, I know exactly where it's coming from because easy. I pay attention to where the sun rises and set. You could do it that way, or you could have a literal compass if you need to be precise, okay? The direction you know it's coming from, you have to stand and face that way. I face that way, and I do a combination of things. One thing I do is I aim to literally suck the life out of the storm. Now, because I am actually outside in the atmosphere, I am actually in the same wind system as this storm. You know what I'm saying? Even if it is still down in Florida, South Carolina, we're operating from a much larger scale. That's around the corner. Like from the perspective we're operating on right here, we're on atmospheric level. So it's actually super close, even if it is in Florida. And so we faced the storm. I faced that storm in particular, the one that was coming. I got to go back and see what the name of that guy was. I don't remember. Was it Michael? It might have been Hurricane Michael. But anyways, I faced the storm. You have to empty your lungs as far as you can, as much as you can. Clear them out. Now, of course, before any working, you establish protections, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that part. Just set your protections up. I set mine. I speak to my guys. They're usually always with me. They're always with me. So after I've done that, I'm outside in the wind system. I face the direction of the storm. I empty my lungs completely. And when I pull in, I have my third eye focused on the storm. I know you've seen visuals where there's a head and a beam reaching out into the ethers. Like, that's how I aim at the storm, actually, with the pineal. And with my emptied lungs, I pull in air all the way until I cannot hold in shit else. What do I do once I'm full? These batches, actually, when I pull it in, there is a visual where that my whole torso glows. Like, once I start pulling it in, it's like pulling in a stream of light, because it's the power I'm pulling. I'm doing it by way of inhaling all of the wind that I can, but when it's entering my mouth and in my body, it's a beam of light and my whole torso glows. Okay? This is important because then there is a deposit that I do where it will then exit, okay, the body. All right? And it's deposited as like one light package, like a cinder block of light. I don't know what to tell you. This is weird because it was the first time I'm explaining it. But that chunk, like that bullion, that gold bullion that I just pulled out of the storm, it's converted from power, atmospheric power, into a bullion of something of value, okay? And I hand it off to my ancestors, and they deposit it into my personal, you know what I'm saying? I decide if it's going into my personal cosmic checking or the savings, which is tends to be where the whole lineage is, reserves are. But if I know I'm going to be using this again pretty soon, I tell them to store it where my personal part, my portion is. Put my stuff there, okay? They drop it there. I drop it. Sometimes I go with them and drop it. You got to understand, this is all happening in the mind's eye. It's a lot going on real fast, and in many places all at once. Because I'm definitely still standing here in the 3D on Earth, doing basically a mental magic breath exercise on a hurricane. You know what I'm saying? I'm still here doing that, but as I'm pulling it in, there's like an assembly line of golden bullions being moved from me into the cosmic account, of course, to free up space again for me to do the next inhale. Okay? When I exhale, that's them getting the brick, okay? When I inhale, that's me getting a new brick out of the storm. You got to understand, you ever heard somebody say, oh, they knocked the Mario coins out of something? When you're pulling in and withdrawing power from the storm, it is literally like snatching the Mario coins out of the thing, okay? So once you start doing that, I promise you, every single time I have looked for the update after going outside and handling my business, the fucking categories start to drop, boy. And it all depends on how much time I spent outside doing the breath exercise. Be careful with this. I don't want y'all out there hyperventilating and then falling out in your yard, okay? Take your little breaks as needed. Okay, because these are really big batches of air you're pulling in. You could get lightheaded and tip over. Don't you say I did it to you, okay? You don't have to do this straight through. You can do it in 5 big ass breaths. Sit your ass down. Enjoy the atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? Do it again. Chill. You know what I'm saying? But this is what I do, okay? Because I ain't about to fall out nowhere. So that is how I drop the categories and also create a stockpile of power to use later. Now, the other mental exercise that I do is some of the exhales is me pushing the storm away. It's pushing it back out to sea. It's giving it a jet stream of power from a true divine being. Okay? Because if I start doing this and my aim is for you to go elsewhere, so it shall be. And so I've done that. That's what I did with that category 5. I had to do all the things for that storm. I had to pull the power out of it and I had to redirect it because it was coming straight at our ass real fast, real hard. It would have been terrible. Oh my God. So of course it was only I believe it was a category 1 as it approached the shoreline, but it dropped to a TS by the time it actually got over. So we got our typical wind, rain, flood. Like it was just like a really, really bad storm, like tropical storm. It wasn't a grown-up version. It wasn't big dog no more for sure. Now, I had done work before where I had the option to do one of those practices, but one of each of those practices, whether it was pushing it away, the art of pulling the power and the art of storing the power. I had the luxury of doing one or the other. But this was the first time I had to do it all. And I had to do it a lot because it was big and it was coming straight at us.